The deep void of space stretched endlessly in every direction, a silent black sea dotted with distant stars. For centuries, explorers from many worlds had mapped the galaxies, cataloging stars, planets, and strange phenomena. But even the most seasoned teams sometimes stumbled across mysteries that had no explanation. This time, the discovery came to a small coalition survey team sent to chart a remote and largely forgotten section of the outer rim. They were not looking for anything extraordinary. Their job was simple: scan, record, and move on. Yet what they found would change the way they thought about Earth and the long-lost history of humanity. It started with subtle readings. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Sensors picked up faint energy signatures deep inside an asteroid field. The readings were weak, almost negligible, but they were too structured to ignore. Energy patterns like these were not natural. They hinted at something artificial buried beneath the rock. The team's sensors were finely tuned, capable of detecting even centuries-old machinery. As they approached, the readings grew clearer. Whatever lay inside those asteroids was massive, possibly larger than anything the team had encountered before. The team's leader, a quiet yet sharp-minded officer, studied the holographic map projected in front of him. These readings, they don't make sense. We've scanned this sector countless times before. How could something this large escape detection for so long? One of the engineers pointed at a cluster of dense asteroids. Look here. The signals are strongest in this region. There's a structure hidden inside, almost camouflaged by the rocks. Whoever built it didn't want anyone to find it. The moment the words left his mouth, a sense of tension settled over the group. None of them could deny it. The energy signatures were old, very old, but they still pulsed faintly as if they were alive. The patterns didn't match anything in the known databases. No alien technology in their records came close to this. They carefully maneuvered their ship through the asteroid belt. The massive rocks loomed like giants, their shadows stretching across the hull. Each movement had to be precise. A collision would have been catastrophic. Still, despite the danger, excitement began to ripple through the team. There was a thrill in discovering something entirely unknown. They were standing at the edge of history, staring into the remnants of a past civilization that had left the galaxy guessing for centuries. When they finally entered the heart of the asteroid cluster, the outline of the structure became clear. It was enormous, stretching for miles in every direction. Smooth metallic surfaces reflected the faint starlight, but the metal was weathered and scarred. Panels were missing in places, and jagged openings suggested that time had not been kind. Yet despite the decay, the structure radiated a silent strength. It was not just a building. It was a monument to an advanced civilization's ambition and might. This is a shipyard, the officer said quietly, almost to himself. The word hung in the air. A shipyard of this scale implied a civilization capable of constructing massive ships and machines. But Earth had not been recorded as having such technology for centuries. And yet, every sensor screamed the same thing. This was Terran. Old records suggested that humanity had once built wonders beyond comprehension, but all had been lost in the chaos of past wars. Now, evidence lay before them, dormant and waiting. The team docked cautiously and prepared to explore. The interior of the shipyard was vast, far larger than any of their databases could describe. Towers of machinery rose from the floors. Cranes hung like skeletal arms over silent assembly lines, and enormous doors led into hangars, where shadows hinted at enormous shapes inside. The air was still, and there was no sound except for the quiet hum of the ship's engines and their own footsteps echoing through the empty corridors. As they advanced deeper, strange markings appeared along the walls. Ancient symbols, scratched into the metal, pulsed faintly when the sensors passed over them. They were Terran script, old and unreadable to most, but even the fragmented fragments suggested warnings, instructions, or something far more significant. One of the linguists on the team traced her fingers across the symbols. "This isn't just a building," she said. "It's a record. Whoever built this left instructions, a guide for those who would come later. It's like a message from the past, waiting for someone to understand it." The tension among the team grew. Some wanted to leave immediately, believing that touching anything could be dangerous. Others, however, were driven by curiosity, the desire to uncover secrets long thought lost. No one could resist the pull of history. They advanced toward the first massive hangar, its doors looming like a giant's maw. As the lights from their ship scanned the entrance, the scale of what lay inside became apparent. There were shapes, enormous forms lying dormant in the shadows. They were taller than buildings, metal giants covered in dust, their outlines humanoid, but monstrous in size. The engineers exchanged stunned glances. These are war mechs," one whispered. His voice trembled, half in fear, half in awe. These were no ordinary machines. They were designed for combat, capable of immense destruction, and yet they had not moved in centuries. The very air seemed to hum with the latent energy emanating from them. The team hesitated. Protocol dictated caution, but protocol did not prepare them for this. The hangars stretched endlessly, rows upon rows of these silent giants. Each one was a testament to human ingenuity, a reminder that humanity had once held power in the galaxy that no one fully understood. The realization struck them hard. Humans had built something meant to defend, to conquer, and perhaps to survive in the worst of times. And now this power was waiting, silent but far from dead. Some members of the team began scanning the central control room. Ancient consoles flickered weakly when touched, and some panels responded as though recognizing the presence of life. It was as if the shipyard itself was aware of intruders. The warnings etched into the walls suddenly felt more urgent. They were not just symbols. They were instructions meant to protect the machines, to ensure that only those authorized could awaken them. Yet the temptation was too great. Curiosity outweighed caution. Tools were activated, panels were opened, and the hum of life began stirring within the dormant systems. Small lights blinked in patterns, and faint mechanical whirs echoed through the hangar. The team's excitement turned to apprehension. Something had shifted. The shipyard was no longer silent. The leader's voice cut through the tension. "Everyone, step back. We don't fully understand what we are doing. If these machines are armed, we could be in serious danger." But some of the younger engineers, driven by ambition and the thrill of discovery, ignored the warning. They had dreamed of uncovering lost Terran technology, and now they were standing on the edge of history itself. As they moved deeper into the hangar, the first war mech's eyes flickered with light. A low vibration ran through the floor. The machine shifted slightly, as though testing its long-forgotten muscles. Everyone froze, hearts pounding. This was no simulation. This was real, and the ancient guardians of Earth had sensed intruders for the first time in centuries. The team exchanged anxious looks. There was awe, fear, and disbelief all mingled together. Humanity's lost history was no longer just a story. It was tangible, alive, and waiting. And the first part of their journey, the discovery of the hidden shipyard, was only the beginning. The past had awakened, and the universe would soon learn that Earth's legacy was far from forgotten. As the explorers carefully retreated to plan their next steps, a quiet realization settled in everyone's mind. They were not just visitors in a forgotten place. They had stepped into the threshold of something powerful, something meant to remain dormant until the time was right. And somehow, unknowingly, they had triggered the first stirrings of the war mech's awakening. The first moments of discovery had left the team stunned and unsure. The sheer scale of the shipyard and the enormous machines within were overwhelming. Their minds struggled to process what they had seen, and the silence of the hangar pressed heavily on them. Each step they took echoed like a warning, reminding them that they were far from any ordinary place. The war mechs, massive as they were, remained mostly still, but subtle movements hinted at life beneath the layers of dust and metal. They were ancient, yes, but far from completely inactive. The leader called the team together, trying to bring order to their thoughts. "We need to document everything carefully," he said. "We cannot touch the systems until we understand them. These machines, they are Terran. That means they were built by humans long ago. If we trigger anything without knowing what it does, we could be in serious danger." Some members nodded, while others struggled to hide their curiosity. The temptation to explore the giant machines and their control systems was irresistible. One engineer, eager and determined, whispered, "They're like nothing we've ever seen. I need to know how they work." The team moved cautiously, scanning each mech with specialized instruments. Each machine was a towering humanoid figure, metal plating scratched and worn, but the structure beneath was perfectly preserved. Sensors showed dormant power cores, intricate circuits, and mechanical joints that could still move with incredible precision. The air was thick with the feeling of anticipation, as though the machines were waiting to respond to the first command. The hangars themselves were enormous. Cranes hung like skeleton arms, and assembly lines ran far into the darkness. Broken panels revealed rows of dormant drones and robotic arms. Every detail suggested that this shipyard was not only a place of construction, but a fortress designed to build, maintain, and protect the war mechs. The team realized they were standing inside a fully automated military complex, hidden away from the galaxy for centuries. While most of the team focused on the machines, the linguists and historians examined the walls. Ancient Terran symbols glowed faintly under the scanners. They were more than just words. They were instructions, warnings, and perhaps even explanations of the war mech's purpose. One of the linguists ran her hand over the symbols. "This is a record," she said softly. "They left guidance here for anyone who comes after. It's not just machinery. They wanted someone to understand why these exist." Her words only increased the tension. Some members argued they should leave everything alone, believing the symbols were warnings. Others, driven by curiosity, wanted to access the control rooms and learn how to operate the systems. The debate grew heated. "We can't just leave this knowledge untouched," one engineer said. "Imagine what these machines can teach us. This could change everything we know about Earth and its history." The leader made a decision. "We'll proceed slowly. We document, we scan, and we do not activate anything. Nothing touches the control panels until we understand it fully." "Everyone understands?" Nods circulated, but the unspoken truth was that curiosity would not be so easily contained. The team approached the first central control room, a massive chamber at the center of the hangar. Its doors were enormous, covered in Terran symbols and protective seals. Panels flickered weakly, as if waiting for someone to interact. The room smelled faintly metallic, with an undertone of long-dormant machinery. It was clear that this was the brain of the shipyard, where commands could be issued to every war mech and automated system inside. Careful hands ran over the panels. Some lights responded to the team's touch, flickering and humming faintly. The engineer who had spoken before whispered, "It's alive. In some way, it's aware of us." The leader frowned, warning everyone to step back. But curiosity is a hard thing to contain. One team member, unable to resist, pressed a sequence of controls, thinking it was a safe test. The reaction was immediate. Tiny lights across the hangar blinked, and a low hum began to fill the space. Mechanical joints creaked as if testing their flexibility. The war mechs shifted slightly, just enough to make the team realize these were not just machines, they were guardians. The excitement in the room mixed with fear. No one had expected a response so quick, and the weight of their actions began to sink in. A faint mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. It was soft, almost imperceptible at first, but it grew clearer. The words were Old Terran, translated quickly by the team's systems. Unauthorized presence detected. Defense protocols initializing. Panic rippled through the team. This was more serious than they had imagined. The hangar, the machines, the shipyard itself, it was all part of a living system designed to protect something extremely valuable. Some team members froze, unsure whether to retreat or continue. The leader's voice was firm. Everyone, back away from the control panels. We are not here to fight. We need to observe, understand, and document. That is all. But the war mechs did not wait for permission. Lights along their joints flashed, energy readings spiked, and drones that had been dormant suddenly came online. Scanning the intruder's dot, it was a delicate balance between fear and fascination. The engineers and scientists could hardly look away. Every detail, every movement, was proof of human ingenuity long thought lost. Yet there was danger in that fascination. The team realized that a single wrong move could trigger full activation of the war mechs, something they were not prepared to handle. Hours passed as the team cautiously explored the hangar. They documented everything, from the shapes of the machines to the faint traces of Terran energy. Each panel, each symbol, seemed to tell a story about the past. They learned that these war mechs were not just weapons. They were designed to protect, to guard a legacy that had been hidden from the galaxy for centuries. During a short break, the leader gathered the team. We need a plan. We cannot just wander around this place. Every mech, every control system is a potential threat. But at the same time, we are witnessing something no one else has ever seen. This is history. Living history. The team nodded, understanding the gravity of their situation. They had discovered not just machines, but a monument to humanity's ambition, intelligence, and foresight. Every careful movement, every scan, and every observation mattered. They were explorers, but they were also caretakers of a secret far older than any of them had imagined. Night fell over the asteroid field outside, but inside the hangar, light and energy pulsed faintly. The war mechs remained mostly still, but there was a sense that they were watching, learning, and waiting. The team set up temporary monitoring stations, ensuring that any change could be tracked immediately. They were determined not to provoke the systems, yet they could not ignore the fact that they had already triggered some form of response. The first part of their mission had been discovery. The second part was understanding. They knew that the next steps could be dangerous, but curiosity was a powerful force. The machines had awoken slightly, enough to remind the team that they were no longer dealing with ordinary technology. Every member of the team felt the weight of responsibility, the thrill of discovery, and the subtle fear that came with standing at the edge of a history far greater than themselves. As they prepared for a deeper exploration, one engineer whispered to another, "We've found something the galaxy forgot, something humans left behind, and now we're part of the story." The hangar remained quiet, but beneath the dust and silence, the war mechs shifted ever so slightly. They were ancient, they were powerful, and they were aware. The awakening had begun, even if the team did not yet realize it. And in that quiet, tense moment, the first true connection between the explorers and the lost guardians of Earth had been made. The shipyard hummed with a quiet energy, almost imperceptible at first. The explorers had spent hours cautiously studying the war mechs, documenting every detail and trying to understand the strange symbols etched into the walls. They believed that careful observation would keep them safe, but as the hours passed, the subtle signs of life from the machines became impossible to ignore. Tiny vibrations ran through the floors, Lights flickered in patterns, and faint mechanical sounds echoed through the hangars. Something was stirring, and it was more than just the sensors reacting to the team's presence. The leader gathered the team once again, trying to keep everyone focused. "We must be careful," he said. "These systems are old, but they are not inactive. There is a sequence of protocols here, likely built to activate only under specific circumstances. If we make a mistake, we could trigger something we are not prepared for." His eyes scanned the room, lingering on the massive figures of the war mechs. Their outlines were imposing, even in the dim light, and for the first time, the leader felt a deep sense of unease. Despite the warnings, curiosity won over caution. One of the engineers approached the central control console again, unable to resist the temptation. His hands hovered over the buttons, studying the intricate interface, and for a moment he hesitated. The symbols on the screen were alien yet familiar, echoing patterns that suggested a language of precision and logic. He pressed a few sequences slowly, almost experimentally, thinking he was safe. At first, nothing happened. Then, a subtle change rippled through the hangar. The war mechs shifted slightly, their heavy joints creaking after centuries of stillness. Lights flickered along their frames, tracing the edges of armor plating and revealing the hidden complexity of their design. The team froze, realizing that the machines were not simply inanimate objects. They were reacting to the touch on the controls. A low vibration spread through the floor, growing stronger with every passing second. The hum of dormant engines rose to a noticeable pitch, and the air itself seemed to thrum with energy. The linguist on the team gasped. "It's responding to us," she whispered. "We've triggered something. I think it's the awakening protocol." The leader's face tightened. "Everyone, step back. We do not know what this entails. Do not touch anything else." But before his words could take full effect, the room was suddenly filled with a deep, resonant sound, an artificial voice, mechanical yet unmistakably intelligent. It echoed through the hangar, vibrating the walls and floors. "Unauthorized access detected," the voice said, ancient Terran words translated instantly by the team's devices. "Defense systems engaging. Protocol activation in progress." Panic surged through the group. The low hum of machinery became a steady growl, the kind of sound that made the hair on the back of their necks stand up. The war mechs began to move incrementally, each motion precise and calculated. They were testing, scanning, assessing the team. The weight of their presence was overwhelming. Each mech towered over the explorers like a sentinel of a bygone age, a guardian of secrets that no one was meant to uncover. "What do we do?" One engineer whispered, eyes wide. Fear mixed with awe, a strange combination that left the team momentarily paralyzed. "Stay calm," the leader said firmly. "Do not make sudden movements. Observe. Document. We are not here to fight, yet we must prepare for the worst." The AI voice continued to echo through the chamber. "Intruders identified. Defensive measures recommended. Activation of automated units imminent." Drones that had been dormant for centuries slowly rose from their docking stations, their lights cutting through the dim hangar like tiny stars. They moved in calculated patterns, scanning the team, analyzing every movement. The explorers realized that the shipyard was not only a storage facility, but a living system designed for rapid response. Every mech, every drone, every piece of machinery was connected in a network, ready to defend the legacy of humanity. One of the engineers, driven by a mix of fear and fascination, whispered, "These machines, they were built to be unstoppable. Even after centuries, they can sense us, analyze us, respond to us. This is beyond anything we've ever seen." The leader nodded grimly. "That's exactly why we need to be careful. One wrong move and we could trigger full-scale activation." As the team watched, The war mechs shifted into positions that suggested readiness, but not aggression. It was as if the machines were aware of the difference between threat and curiosity. Yet the hum of energy and the flickering lights indicated that the awakening protocol was progressing. The shipyard itself seemed to breathe, alive in a way that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. A historian on the team pointed to a central terminal, where the symbols on the screen had begun to change. These markings, their instructions. They're guiding the mechs, telling them how to respond. But they're incomplete. We don't understand everything. The team realized that the original builders had designed these machines to operate autonomously, but with a level of control intended for those who understood the system. The explorers were outsiders, and yet their presence had been detected, triggering the first stages of full system activation. Minutes passed like hours. The hum of machinery grew louder, and the vibrations through the floor became more pronounced. The war mechs moved with greater confidence, their sensors sweeping the hangar. One by one, lights on their bodies ignited, tracing circuits and power lines that had been dormant for centuries. Each mech was coming alive, as if remembering a purpose long forgotten. The engineers tried to stay calm while documenting everything. Every sensor reading, every mechanical movement was recorded. Yet the tension in the air was almost unbearable. The team understood that they were witnessing history, but history that could very easily become dangerous if mismanaged out suddenly. The AI voice spoke again, louder this time, resonating through the massive chamber. Warning, security breach detected. Protocol escalation imminent. Intruders must be contained. Fear gripped the team, but the leader remained focused. Back away slowly, he instructed. Do not panic. Keep your movements controlled. We are observers here, not combatants. The war mechs responded to the commands, or rather, to the presence of the humans, with subtle adjustments in stance. They were enormous, towering machines, capable of immense destruction, yet they did not attack. It was clear they had the ability to discern intent. The explorers realized that these were not simply weapons. They were guardians, designed to judge and respond rather than destroy indiscriminately. The team's linguist continued studying the symbols on the walls and terminals. These messages, they're warnings, she said. They were built to protect something. Not just the mechs themselves, but perhaps the shipyard, the technology, and whatever humans left behind. As the minutes stretched on, the realization dawned on everyone. The awakening protocol was no simple activation. It was a test, a judgment, and a preparation. The war mechs were not mindless machines. They were sentinels, waiting to determine whether the intruders posed a threat. And in some way, the shipyard itself was alive, observing, judging, and reacting to every choice the explorers made. The leader addressed the team again. We are in uncharted territory. The machines are ancient, but they are not dormant. They can respond faster than we can react. We need to respect their systems and follow the protocols as best we can. Despite the fear, there was a sense of awe. They were witnessing the culmination of human ingenuity, a power that had been hidden for centuries, now slowly awakening because of their curiosity. The team felt a mixture of pride and terror. They were the first outsiders to step into this shipyard in hundreds of years, and every movement they made could influence what happened next. The AI voice spoke once more, with a tone that was both mechanical and commanding. Defense systems online. Intruders assessed. Awaiting further action from authorized personnel. The explorers realized then that they were standing on the edge of history and technology far beyond anything they had imagined. They were no longer just observers. They had become participants in a process that had been waiting for centuries to begin. As the war mechs shifted into readiness, and drones hovered silently in the air. The team prepared for the next stage of exploration. The awakening protocol had begun, and there was no turning back. They had triggered something extraordinary, something powerful, and something that could not be ignored. And in that moment, the explorers understood a simple, terrifying truth. Humanity's lost legacy was not gone. It was alive, it was aware, and it was waiting for the right moment to reclaim its purpose. The activation of the war mechs had sent subtle signals across the galaxy, though the coalition team inside the shipyard did not yet understand the full implications of their actions. Deep within the systems hidden across distant star clusters, ancient human networks began to stir. These were the communication webs, long dormant but never destroyed, left behind by a humanity that had hidden itself from the eyes of the galaxy. Even after centuries of isolation, these systems still functioned, waiting for just such an event, a sign that the hidden legacy of Earth had been disturbed. Back on a distant station, far from the shipyard, operators monitoring the long-forgotten Terran network noticed unusual activity. Screens flickered with lines of code and strange energy pulses that had been quiet for centuries. The operators, trained to recognize subtle anomalies, knew immediately that this was no ordinary disturbance. Terran systems were designed to send signals only when their secrets were at risk. The hidden fleet and hidden infrastructure of humanity had been awakened. A senior officer on the distant station watched the data flow with growing concern. "It's happening," he said quietly. "The shipyard is active. The war mechs have sensed something or someone, and the awakening protocols are in progress. This is the first time in hundreds of years that the networks have been triggered." The team at the station worked quickly, analyzing the signals and trying to understand the nature of the threat or opportunity. "It's not just the mechs," one operator said. "The shipyard is sending out energy pulses across multiple channels. Someone or something is being watched." These are surveillance systems built into the very fabric of the shipyard itself. Whoever triggered them, they are now under observation. The operators realized that the coalition team had unknowingly triggered a sequence far beyond their comprehension. The war mechs were not simply machines. They were part of a broader network designed to alert humanity, to prepare for a response, and if necessary, to defend Earth's secrets at any cost. Every movement inside the shipyard was being recorded, every energy fluctuation cataloged, and every mechanical stir noted by systems that were centuries ahead of anything else in the galaxy. Meanwhile, within the shipyard, the explorers noticed the subtle changes around them. The war mech's movements became more precise, more deliberate, as if guided by an invisible intelligence. The drones continued to scan, forming invisible grids across the hangar, and the lights along the walls flickered in coordinated patterns. The team realized that they were no longer merely inside a building. They were inside a living system that had been dormant for centuries, designed to awaken only under specific conditions. "What are they doing?" One engineer whispered, unable to hide the tremor in their voice. "It's like they're learning. They're assessing us," the linguist replied. "These machines are not attacking. They are judging. They are determining whether we are a threat or not. And based on the data, they will decide what comes next." Outside the shipyard, the ancient human networks continued to analyze the signals. Hidden command centers, scattered across secret colonies, began to wake up. Ships that had long been in stasis, ships that were thought to exist only in myths, received encrypted messages from the shipyard itself. The messages were simple but clear. The awakening protocol had been triggered, and intruders were present. The leaders of the hidden Terran fleet convened immediately. They had been preparing for centuries to respond to such an event, and yet there was still a sense of urgency. The fleet was not designed for open warfare. It was a safeguard, a mechanism to protect humanity's legacy and secrets. But now, activation had begun without their direct control, and that was cause for immediate action. A council member addressed the assembly, their voice steady but firm. "The shipyard is active. Sensors indicate that foreign explorers have entered the main hangar. The war mechs are responding according to protocols. We must move carefully. Any direct interference could be misinterpreted as a threat, triggering a full defensive response." Within the shipyard, the coalition team noticed subtle changes as well. Power grids shifted, energy readings spiked and fell rhythmically, and the mech's eyes glowed faintly, as if observing the team in a way that went beyond mechanical sensing. The explorers realized that the systems were now not just reactive, they were predictive. The machines were anticipating movements, calculating intentions, and adjusting their responses with incredible precision. The leader called the team together. "We are not alone," he said, his voice calm but carrying an undertone of concern. "We are being observed, not just by these machines, but by something connected to them. We must be cautious. Every step we take could influence what happens next." The linguist studied the symbols on the walls again, cross-referencing them with the newly activated panels. "The messages are warnings," she said. "They're telling us that these mechs are connected to a larger system. The shipyard is not just a storage facility. It's a defense hub, a network, and a message system all at once. Whoever built this didn't want it to be discovered lightly." The engineers nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We've underestimated them," one said. "These are not just machines. They are guardians. And we are intruders. We need to figure out how to interact without triggering full-scale activation." As the team debated their next steps, subtle tremors ran through the floor. The war mechs shifted in unison, their movements coordinated and deliberate. The AI voice that had been heard earlier now spoke again, its tone steady but commanding. "Observation in progress. Intruders detected. Security protocols active. Awaiting response from authorized entities." The team realized that they had entered a space where time and control were no longer fully theirs. They were participants in an event that had been set in motion centuries before. Every machine, every system, every subtle energy pulse was part of a network designed to protect, observe, and if necessary, defend. Outside the shipyard, the hidden human fleet began to mobilize. Ships long thought dormant slipped out of stasis, their engines coming to life after centuries of silence. Pilots, scientists, and commanders who had been trained for generations to respond to such events began to analyze the signals, preparing for the possibility of direct engagement. Yet even as they moved, there was a strict protocol. The awakening of the war mechs was not to be interfered with unless absolutely necessary. The machines were designed to judge, and human intervention could risk catastrophic consequences. Back in the shipyard, the explorers felt the weight of centuries pressing down upon them. They were standing in a place built for a purpose they could barely understand, surrounded by machines designed to protect a legacy that had been hidden from the galaxy. Every decision mattered, every movement counted, and the quiet hum of energy through the building reminded them that they were no longer simply observers. They were participants in a story that stretched across centuries and stars. As night fell outside the asteroid field, the explorers worked tirelessly to understand the systems around them. Their equipment recorded every fluctuation, every pattern, every pulse of energy. They tried to interpret the AI messages and the symbols, but even with their advanced technology, much of it remained beyond comprehension. The linguist finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "These systems, they are waiting for something. They are not just reacting. They are preparing. And I think they are waiting for humanity to respond." The team exchanged uneasy glances. Humanity? The thought seemed impossible. Humans were long thought to be gone, their civilizations lost to time. Yet here, in the silent hangar filled with the faint hum of awakening machines, There was evidence that humanity had not vanished entirely. There were systems in place, networks active, and a presence that stretched far beyond the immediate location dot. The realization settled over the team like a heavy weight. They were no longer merely explorers discovering a relic. They had awakened something much larger than themselves. The war mechs were alive in a sense they could not fully understand, connected to a hidden human network that spanned the galaxy. The decisions they made now would ripple outward, touching systems and people they had never imagined existed. As the team prepared for the next phase of exploration, the war mechs continued to move with deliberate precision. Their energy cores pulsed rhythmically, lights tracing ancient circuitry, and drones maintained silent vigilance. The shipyard was fully awake, aware, and connected to forces far beyond the immediate hangar dot, and in the quiet moments between the hums and the flickering lights, the explorers understood a profound truth. They had stumbled into a legacy that had been hidden for centuries, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity's influence had never truly vanished. The awakening of the war mechs was only the beginning. The hidden watchers of humanity had been alerted, and the first steps toward a response had begun. The hangar trembled faintly, the vibrations running through the floor like a warning pulse. The war mechs, which had stood mostly still until now, were beginning to move with confidence. Their immense frames shifted, the joints releasing a metallic groan that had not been heard in centuries. The explorers realized, almost at once, that the shipyard was no longer simply awake, it was preparing for action. Every light, every sensor, every mechanical limb was now active, responding to a pattern that the humans inside could barely comprehend. The drones, which had been hovering silently, began to move in precise formations. They scanned the team with rapid beams of light, mapping each body, analyzing gestures, and recording every motion. The explorers instinctively froze in place, realizing that any sudden movement could be interpreted as a threat. Their hearts raced as the quiet hum of machinery swelled into a rhythmic chorus, a song of awakening that filled the massive chamber. The leader gathered the team quickly. "Everyone, stay calm," he said, though his voice betrayed a hint of tension. "Do not make any sudden movements. We are no longer just observers. These machines are fully aware of our presence. We must respect their systems and be cautious in everything we do." One engineer could not hide his fascination. "Look at them," he whispered, pointing to a mech whose eyes glowed with a pale blue light. "They're enormous, but it's not just size. They're alive in a way we don't understand. They're thinking, calculating. Every movement is deliberate." The linguist nodded, her eyes scanning the symbols on the walls as if hoping for guidance. "These messages," she said softly, "they're warnings, yes, but also instructions. The war mechs are designed to protect something. Not just the shipyard, not just themselves, but something bigger. And I think they know we're not meant to harm them, at least not yet." The AI voice echoed once more, this time more clearly and assertively. "Intruders detected. Defense systems activated. Stand down if non-threatening. Unauthorized interference will escalate response." The words sent a chill through the team. It was not a threat. It was a command, a clear warning that the war mechs were no longer passive. The explorers realized that they were standing on the threshold of a system designed to respond decisively to any intrusion. Every step they took could trigger actions that they could not control. Suddenly, one of the larger mechs shifted its legs and lifted an arm, revealing a long, intricate weapon system built into its frame. The sheer size of the machinery was staggering. It could have destroyed their ship in seconds, yet it remained poised, waiting, assessing. The team could feel the power emanating from the machine, a reminder of the intelligence and capability of its creators. "We've underestimated them," one engineer whispered. "These machines, they are not just guardians. They are warriors, built to respond to threats without hesitation. And yet, they're not attacking. They're calculating. The leader nodded gravely. That's why we need to be careful. We are visitors in a place built for defense, a place where every system is connected. We cannot rush, and we cannot assume anything. One wrong move, and the results could be catastrophic. The war mechs began to move in patterns that suggested preparation rather than aggression. They repositioned themselves strategically, forming protective lines and scanning zones that covered the entire hangar. It was clear that they were organizing a response, but not a hostile one, at least not yet. They were measuring, observing, and calculating the intentions of the humans who had entered their domain. The drones moved in precise formations, creating invisible grids across the hangar. Every corner, every passage, every doorway was being monitored. The explorers realized that the shipyard had become a living defense system, and they were the focus of its attention. The tension was palpable, yet awe mingled with fear. They were witnessing a level of design and intelligence that had been lost to the galaxy. A reminder that humanity's legacy had not truly vanished. Hours passed, and the explorers continued their careful work, documenting every movement and reaction. They analyzed the mech's posture, the patterns of the drones, and the AI messages that continued to echo throughout the chamber. They realized that these machines were not just weapons. They were judges, guardians of a secret, and sentinels of a civilization thought long gone. The linguist continued to decipher the messages on the walls. They're designed to recognize intent, she explained. The war mechs are not mindless machines. They can differentiate between curiosity, threat, and respect. They are protecting something that humans left behind. They will escalate only if provoked. The team understood the gravity of their situation. They were not simply exploring. They were interacting with a system that had been waiting for centuries to be disturbed. Every observation, every movement, every choice mattered. They realized that they were not alone in this awakening. Somewhere, deep within the hidden human networks, systems had detected the activation and were beginning to respond. Back in distant command centers, operators monitored the signals. Ships long thought dormant prepared for potential engagement, while scientists and engineers analyzed the data coming from the shipyard. The hidden human fleet was ready, but intervention was not yet authorized. The war mechs were doing their job perfectly. They were assessing the intruders, maintaining order, and waiting for guidance from those who had built and commanded them centuries ago. Within the shipyard, the explorers realized that they were witnessing a living legacy. The war mechs were not attacking, yet their presence was commanding. The energy readings from their cores pulsed steadily, lights tracing circuits and revealing intricate patterns of technology that had been lost to time. It was as if the machines themselves were communicating silently, a language of movement, light, and energy that conveyed awareness and judgment. One of the engineers spoke quietly, almost to himself. It's incredible. They're massive, powerful, and intelligent. And yet, they're patient. They're waiting to understand us before acting. They're more human than we expected, in a way. The leader nodded. Yes, but we must remember we are guests in a place built for defense. Respect is not enough. We must be careful. Every step counts. We cannot rush, and we cannot assume that curiosity alone will protect us. As the explorers continued their careful movements, they began to notice subtle coordination among the war mechs. They shifted in unison, their sensors sweeping the room, and the drones adjusted their patterns accordingly. It was a display of precision and discipline that spoke to the original designer's intent. These machines had been created for war. Yes, but also for protection. And now, centuries later, they were fulfilling their purpose flawlessly. The AI voice echoed again, clearer and more assertive than before. All systems operational. Intruders assessed. awaiting further instructions from authorized personnel. Stand down if non-threatening. Unauthorized actions will escalate response. The explorers understood that the war mechs were communicating not just with each other, but with the hidden human networks. They were part of a larger system, one that had been dormant for centuries, waiting for a sign, waiting for activation, waiting for humanity itself to intervene. The team felt the weight of history pressing down on them. They had awakened something extraordinary, something powerful, and something that had been hidden for centuries. The war mechs were alive, aware, and calculating. They were not mindless weapons. They were sentinels, guardians of a legacy that the galaxy had long forgotten. As the night stretched on, the explorers worked tirelessly to understand the systems around them. They documented every fluctuation, every movement, every pulse of energy. They tried to interpret the AI messages and the symbols, but much remained beyond their comprehension. They realized that they were part of a story that had been unfolding for centuries, and that the awakening of the war mechs was only one chapter in a much larger narrative. The war mechs, energy cores pulsed steadily, a reminder of the immense power contained within these machines. The drones continued their silent vigil, and the AI monitored every action. The shipyard was fully awake, aware, and preparing for whatever came next. And in the quiet moments between the hums and the mechanical movements, the explorers understood a simple truth. They had entered a legacy that had been hidden for centuries, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity's influence had never truly vanished. The war mechs were fully awake, and the first steps toward a decisive response had begun. The hangar had become a place of tension, anticipation, and awe. The war mechs had fully awakened, their massive frames glowing with energy, their mechanical movements deliberate and precise. The explorers had spent hours observing, documenting, and trying to understand, but now it became clear that the awakening was not complete without the final piece, the return of humanity's hidden presence, not far beyond the asteroid field, deep within the hidden human colonies and command centers. The ancient networks had finished their assessment. Ships that had been dormant for centuries began to move in unison, engines coming to life, sensors activating, and communication channels lighting up across the galaxy. The hidden Terran fleet had been waiting for this moment, and now it was time to respond. A senior commander addressed the assembly of ships and personnel, their voice steady but commanding. The shipyard has been activated. Intruders are present, but the war mechs have not escalated to attack. This indicates recognition and assessment. Our mission is clear. We will make contact, confirm identity, and ensure the security of the war mechs and the shipyard. The fleet moved in silence. Formation precise, engines humming with barely contained power. Long thought lost, these ships were the guardians of humanity's hidden legacy, designed to operate far from the eyes of the galaxy until the time came for them to act. Now, they were returning to the heart of a secret that had waited centuries to be acknowledged. Back in the shipyard, the explorers felt a subtle change in the atmosphere. The war mechs, which had been tense and calculating, now seemed to sense something beyond their immediate sensors. Energy readings shifted, lights pulsed in a different rhythm, and the low hum of machinery changed subtly. The machines were aware of an approaching presence, an ally, not a threat. The leader turned to the team. "Something is coming," he said quietly. "These mechs, they can sense it too. We are about to meet the original guardians of this system." As the first ships of the hidden human fleet emerged from hyperspace, their engines lighting up the void, the explorers watched in awe. Massive vessels, sleek and imposing, approached the asteroid cluster, each one designed with a purpose that had been lost to time. The war mechs shifted their positions, aligning in formation as if recognizing the returning authority. The AI voice of the shipyard spoke once more, this time with a tone of acknowledgement rather than warning. Authorized human presence detected. Intruders identified as non-threatening. Stand-down mode engaged. Immediately, the tension that had gripped the explorers began to ease. The war mechs lowered their arms slightly, their sensors stabilizing, and the drones returned to passive positions. It was clear that the machines had recognized the returning humans as allies and not intruders. The explorers could barely believe what they were witnessing: centuries of secrecy and power, now fully coordinated between the war mechs and the hidden fleet. One of the engineers whispered in amazement, They know who's coming. They're standing down because of them." The linguist nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's recognition. The war mechs are connected to the hidden networks. They understand authority and lineage. Humanity's return has been anticipated for centuries." The lead commander of the arriving fleet established communication with the explorers. "You are safe," the voice said through secure channels. "The war mechs have assessed your intent and confirmed no threat. You may proceed, but understand that this shipyard is a sacred site. It has been protected for generations. Treat it with respect." Relief washed over the team. The fear that had kept their bodies tense for hours slowly faded. Yet awe and respect replaced it. They were standing inside a system that had been built to survive time itself, and they had become witnesses to the culmination of human ingenuity and foresight. The war mechs, now fully aligned with the returning humans, began to move with purpose once more. This time, their motions were coordinated and calm, a clear demonstration of readiness without aggression. The explorers could see the intelligence in their movements, the deliberate grace of machines built for power, but tempered with precision. The fleet's commanders allowed the explorers to access key areas of the shipyard under careful supervision. Every step was guided, every access point monitored, ensuring that the humans within were safe and that the war mechs remained in full control of the facility. It was a delicate balance, a dance between the curiosity of the explorers and the caution of machines that had waited centuries for this moment. The explorers moved through the hangar again, this time able to appreciate the full scale of the war mechs without the tension of potential danger. Each mech was a testament to human engineering, towering and powerful, yet designed with foresight that allowed judgment and restraint. They were guardians, protectors of a legacy that humanity had deliberately hidden from the rest of the galaxy. The linguist continued to interpret the symbols, now with guidance from the returning humans. "These messages," she said softly, "they are instructions, warnings, and records. They were meant to protect knowledge and ensure that only those who understood the legacy could activate it. Now, with the authorized fleet here, the systems can return to full operational status safely." The explorers watched as the war mechs aligned in formation with the fleet, a remarkable display of coordination. Drones hovered in precise positions, scanning the hangar, ensuring security. The energy flows that had seemed mysterious now made sense: power distribution, sensor arrays, and communication links that connected the entire shipyard into a single living system. The lead commander addressed the explorers once more. "You have witnessed something rare and extraordinary," the voice said. "This shipyard, these war mechs, and the hidden networks represent humanity's foresight, resilience, and ability to protect its legacy. You have been part of a moment that few in the galaxy will ever understand." The explorers exchanged glances, understanding the weight of those words. They had come in search of discovery and had found something far greater: a connection to humanity's past, a glimpse of power and intelligence preserved across centuries, and a story that had waited patiently for the right moment to be revealed. For hours, the explorers toured the shipyard under supervision, documenting the systems and understanding the protocols. The war mechs remained in readiness, yet calm, demonstrating that their purpose was not simply to fight, but to judge, protect, and ensure that the legacy they guarded remained intact. Every movement was precise, every action deliberate, and every system active yet controlled. The linguists and engineers worked closely with the returning humans, learning about the hidden networks, the protocols, and the reasons why the shipyard had been concealed for centuries. It became clear that this was not just a relic of the past, it was a living testament to the foresight of a humanity that had planned for centuries, ensuring that its secrets and power could survive even the greatest threats. As the explorers prepared to leave, the lead commander spoke again. "You have witnessed the awakening, but remember this. What you have seen is not meant for conquest. It is a reminder of responsibility, of foresight, and of the enduring legacy of humanity. Guard this knowledge wisely. The war mechs will continue their vigilance, and the shipyard will remain a beacon of human ingenuity." The explorers nodded, understanding that their journey had reached its conclusion, but the story itself was far from over. Humanity's hidden guardians had awakened, a connection had been made, and the legacy of Earth had once again asserted itself in the galaxy. As their ship departed the asteroid field, the explorers looked back at the massive hangar, the war mechs standing in formation, lights tracing their immense frames. The AI voice echoed softly, a final acknowledgement. Activation complete. System stable. Legacy protected. Awaiting future directives. For the explorers, it was a moment they would never forget. They had entered a place lost to time, witnessed the awakening of ancient guardians, and seen humanity's hidden hand stretch across centuries and stars. The galaxy itself seemed different now, aware that a legacy had survived, and that the guardians of Earth were ready should the time ever come again. And in that quiet, awe-filled moment, the explorers understood the truth. Humanity had not been forgotten. It had only been waiting for the right moment, the right eyes, the right curiosity to awaken its greatest protectors. The war mechs, standing tall and vigilant, were no longer dormant. They were alive, aware, and ready to defend the legacy that had been entrusted to them. The explorers left with a sense of respect, wonder, and humility. They had seen the future of humanity preserved in metal and energy, and they had been part of something greater than themselves, a story of survival, foresight, an awakening that would resonate far beyond the silent asteroid fields of the galaxy. The hidden guardians of Earth had been awakened, and the galaxy would never forget the presence of a power that had been waiting patiently, quietly, and wisely for the right moment to reveal itself.